Welcome to Friday I'm in Bed.
Podcast for midlife women living their best life, but in bed by 10. This week on Friday I'm in Bed, we're asking whether celebrities should get political at award shows like the Golden Globes, or whether that's still making people unnecessarily uncomfortable.
Plus, we're chatting about Jade from the Traitors and the £430 hand-knitted cardigan that divided the internet between "that's outrageous" and finally creatives being paid properly.
And finally, we're talking about Kate Winslet's recent photo shoot and the very obvious Photoshop. No shade to her because she's been cleared she doesn't want it. But why magazines still insist, and what does that do to the rest of us, especially when the women in question are in their 50s? Grab a cuppa and let's get into it. Hi, Gem. How are you?
I am very good, thank you, Kate. How are you? Did you have a good week?
I did have a good week. It was okay. Our family are struggling a little bit with, how shall I call it? The winter blues, sad. You know, that kind of January thing. I've noticed that everybody, like one by one, is feeling more sort of despondent and sort of bored. There's been that theme in our house.
We've just gone past Quitters Day, haven't we?
Absolutely.
So I nearly suggested that as a podcast topic, but we were so overwhelmed with other exciting things to discuss, which is like the second Monday in January when we all just like give up, or Friday, when we all just like give up apparently, and like
Yeah, it's like Blue Monday and all that. And obviously that's such a marketing thing. But I think January is a really tough time because you just it feels endless, doesn't it? I think that's the thing. And you just sort of it's cold and holiday seems a far away, and normally we spend lots of time in the garden and there's nothing to do. We've done everything in the garden, so you can't get outside. So we've been feeling a bit
Well, I think it's a long month, and I also think that in our heads it kind of starts like just after Christmas, right? So it's like an extra week. So it's not just a 5-week month; it's like a 6-week month.
Yeah, and we've got a lot planned. So I was saying to my husband, who's really feeling like, oh, you know, it's like there's nothing to look forward to. And I'm like, well, actually, we've got a lot planned. We're going to a gig tonight. My son's in a band and he's playing tomorrow night and Saturday night. And we're going to see my dad. And like, so we've got lots of things. So it's kind of like, let's just get through it. Because you know that come sort of February, mid-February, you know, as we move into spring, you just feel just a little bit better. You know,
Lighter. I mean, I heard it this morning. There were birds singing and stuff, but I mean, the weather's warmed up considerably. Not to talk about the weather again, because very British, obviously. I've just come back from a weekend away. So I went to Croatia last year on a trip, like a group trip, and met like a load of other girls there. And we've just come back from a weekend visit to Sherwood Forest. So looking for Robin Hood. And we stayed in like a cabin. There was a hot tub and a log burner. I would very much recommend that as a way of dealing with January.
Yeah, well,
just go and splat yourself in the forest.
It sounds wonderful. We've actually got a hot tub, and last week I was in it with like snow and frost all around, you know, and it being in it and looking out is lovely. But unfortunately, the rest of my house, well, my husband was like, oh, it's too cold. And it's like, no, actually, it's the perfect time to be in it because it just feels lovely.
Once you get in it, you're like, oh, it's lovely. Yeah, that's what we were sat there. And every now and again, you get too hot and you have to lift your shoulders out and go, oh, no, that's fine.
Well, I sit in it with a woolly hat on.
I've got that now. That picture, that image is going to live rent free in my head forever now. That's it.
To be fair, I have posted that image on stories, so everybody could see it.
Okay. That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I need a woolly hat now and a hot tub.
Anyway, we have so much to talk about this week, to the point where we discuss 3 topics a week, and I think we had about 7. So we better get into it.
So I want to start off very specifically. The thing that's brought this up is Mark Ruffalo at the Golden Globes Awards, where he was doing an interview. They kind of asked him how he was, and he said, well, not good, actually, because the world's an awful place. And he was wearing a pin for Renee Good, who was the civilian human being that was shot by ICE agents in, I always get these mixed up, is it Minneapolis or Minnesota? I thought it began with an M. Thank you. It begins with an M. One of them's probably like 5,000 miles from the other one. But yeah, was shot by an ICE agent, which was awful. I'm sure we've all seen the video. But he basically stood up and used his platform that he had there to say he was wearing this pin and that he thinks that it's terrible. We shouldn't be allowed to shoot civilians in the street, which sounds like a given to me personally. And some people are very annoyed. Some people think that celebrities should stay in their lane and, you know, at the Golden Globes, they should be all frothy and light and not giving their political opinions. Personally, I think they bloody well should be. Like, I think they have every right to use a platform that they have to give those political opinions. I also don't think that we should force people to have political opinions if they don't want to share them, or if they're just not ready to be that person that stands up and puts themselves out there. That, because at the end of the day, it's not their job. It's not an obligation to them to do that any more than it is for the postman to turn up at your door in the morning and go, "Hey, you, who did you vote for?" Yeah, I don't think it's their job. But I think if they want to use their platform like that, I think they have every right as a human being to do so. I mean, have you seen the clip? What did you think?
Seen the clip, and I've seen obviously people wearing pins. For example, Ariana Grande, who my daughter's obsessed with. You know, I saw her with the pin, and actually, I have seen like lots of people complaining about it. Although people complaining about celebrities giving their political views, particularly at award ceremonies, isn't exactly new, because obviously people have talked about Palestine, people have talked about trans rights, people have talked about lots of things. And what makes me almost laugh is, you know, like, look at Bob Dylan in the 1960s, you know, like, as just an example. Like, celebrities, whether they're singers, actors, or whatever, talking about world issues and civil rights isn't exactly a new thing, but people are talking about it as if, like, literally Mark Ruffalo just invented it as a concept, when, you know, we had Sinead O'Connor in the 90s, as I said, Bob Dylan. And actually, quite often, more often than not, creatives are liberal, not all the time, obviously, but generally, you know, they work in a creative industry. They are, you know, they do talk about these things. So what made me almost giggle a little bit at the negative comments was like, it was the eye rolling, like, oh, you know, today this is what celebs are like. It's like, no, this isn't you. There isn't you. And also, there is a lot of backlash for celebrities not using their platform. Now, obviously, you've said nobody has to, you know, everybody can do what they like. But there are people, for example, Taylor Swift, who's obviously one of the biggest celebrities on the planet, who has not spoken out. So she has had a lot of backlash for not voicing her opinion, whatever that opinion is. So it's almost like we don't know her opinion. And it's almost, again, it's like, as you said, does she have to? But people complain if you do speak out, but also complain if you don't speak out.
I think that we have this kind of like mental distinction between what we think of as artists. So musicians and that kind of thing, that like you were talking about Bob Dylan and Sinead O'Connor and those, that kind of thing. I think we have this kind of mental distinction between them as artists and people that we think of as celebrities, which quite often does include a lot of actors, and ones where people want them to be their light entertainment, if you like. So they're maybe not expecting great art from them, so they would rather that they just like stuck to being the Hulk and like didn't bother them with politics while they're having their light entertainment. I don't think that's fair, because I think, I mean, everyone's got their opinions. Some people are more like informed on things than others, and I don't think if your job is essentially, you know, to be the Hulk. I know he's done other things.
Man, we've got to put it out there. Although I do have a tendency to call him Mark Ruffalo, so I need to, just in case I say that, I do know he's not called that.
Well, that's what he is, that a little bit in my head. But to be honest, I hadn't given him a huge amount of thought. I thought he seemed like quite a nice guy. Now I'm a big fan. I love him. I love what he did, and I love that he felt that he had to say something. But at the end of the day, if you just want to be an actor or you want to be a singer or something like that, that doesn't necessarily give you an obligation to keep yourself informed enough on world events that you can stand up and talk about it in public. So I think I don't I don't think there's that obligation. And I see it on a lot of influencers as well that get a lot of shtick off people if they've got a big platform and they're like, well, I've been talking about clothes for like 20 years and just literally showing you how to get dressed. Like, what makes you think I'm going to suddenly decide that I need to talk about immigration policy?
Well, I'd love to talk about this, and I was going to bring this up because there are influencers or just content creators, people in the public eye that aren't actors, let's just say, or singers, who face the backlash of not speaking out, but then face a huge backlash if they do speak out. So I follow a woman, she's an Australian influencer. Let's call her an influencer. She wouldn't probably want to be called that. She's a model and she does fashion and all sorts of things, but has very publicly spoken out about Gaza and lost almost all her brand deals because she was speaking out. But then I know somebody else that hasn't spoken out and got so much backlash for not speaking out. And as somebody, obviously, the people I'm referring to have got like 1 million followers or something, and I'm obviously not there, but I am somebody that has a lot of followers, and I have this real like, oh, like, shall I, shan't I? And like, how much should I go and how much should I not? And I have this real kind of like dilemma. And I know ultimately I can do what I like. I know that. But I also know that people look to me to have an opinion on it because it's like, well, you have an opinion on this, so why don't you have an opinion on that? You know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my platform is tiny, obviously, in comparison to 1 million and in comparison to you, you know, but I still do because I know where I stand on these things.
Mm.
Pretty much all of them. Occasionally there are topics where I go, "Oh, I hadn't even heard of this." Like, where am I? So I know where I stand on all these topics, but I don't feel like I am informed enough or enough of a voice to actually make content around it. Like there'd be occasionally I've put stuff on my stories. If something just happens to come up, I would comment on it. But I certainly don't think that I'm the voice that needs to add to the noise around some of this stuff. I feel like even when things are going really disgustingly wrong in the world, sometimes you do just need a little place where maybe you can go and just be quiet
Yeah.
sometimes. And I think of my kind of corner of the internet more like that. Like this is a corner for me and the people that want to be in it, not for the world.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say that in my private life, I don't I don't do things. I don't, write letters, go to protests, that kind of thing. It's just not necessarily something I shout about
Yeah. And I think there's
online.
people have forgotten that bit, So, for example, somebody might give to charity, but doesn't talk about it. But then if they're then talking about fashion, it's almost like, what are you doing to give back? Or just I'm using that as an example because I know the things I do that are private, do I have to share it? But then I get backlash for not talking about, like I shared, I've got quite a few political slogan t-shirts that I have bought. One says drop beats, not bombs. One is peace is a verb, and I wear them to gigs, and and I am a really political person. And I wore one in a story that said stop funding war. And then I mean most of it was fine, but then there's that person going, which war? And it's like, well, what do you mean which war? To me, it's war, like war, killing people
Mm.
unnecessarily, innocent people. It doesn't matter which one, but I was being baited to talk about one thing specific. And I also I felt I was being baited to see whether I just said Gaza, for example, but didn't say Sudan. Like there's people that want to trip you up. And back to that not feeling informed enough, it's not so much for me, it's not so much that I don't understand it, because I feel like I do and I am quite informed. But there's always someone trying to trip you up, or but have you thought about that, or you never mentioned that, or did and you're like,
Yeah, that's
"Ugh."
the thing. That's the thing. If you pick that one thing to talk about, because it happens to be everywhere, there will be like another war going on somewhere. That because I have had serious anxiety issues with reading the news in the past. So I actually avoid the news. I maybe scan read the headlines occasionally, but I do not actively seek it out because I get deeply, deeply anxious, even, about things that are going on thousands of miles away. And I've got plenty of stuff to be deeply, deeply anxious about that's in like 10 foot of me.
Mm.
Two of them are sat behind me, dogs. So I don't seek it out. So it's not that I'm ill-informed necessarily, but I haven't made it a big priority in my life to look for that information, and therefore I'm not necessarily going to comment on it for other people. I can give my opinions,
Yeah.
but I'm not gonna teach anyone anything.
No.
And I know what you mean about that kind of baiting. People are kind of trying to trip you up. So one of my things was the one time I did kind of get slightly political on my stories was I went to parkrun, and when I finished, somebody had put "Keep Men Out of Women's Sports" flyers under all of the windscreen wipers on the cars in the car park. And I went around and took them all off and threw them in the bin. Several reasons that I do that. I play roller derby. I have skated with a lot of trans skaters, and I say trans people belong in sport. And also, parkrun isn't a competition; it's a run. So I really kind of felt like that was not right, not correct, and I felt very strongly about it. So that was like my little action, and I did put it on my stories. And oh my god, like I think, I mean, for my tiny little market, I did lose a few people, which was sad because some of them were people that I thought of as friends. But losing people like that doesn't necessarily bother me because I think, well, this isn't the right place. This isn't the right place for you. This is just my attitude, not my reason for being, if you see what I mean. Yeah, I think it's important to remember that it's impossible for people to speak out on everything. Even if you think celebrities should get political and that they should definitely use their platform to speak out, you have to remember that they can't speak out about every single awful thing that's happening in the world because they do have a job and a life.
And their audience, we don't all exist in, I was going to say an echo chamber. I don't know if that's even the right word, but my audience, for example, are right wing and left wing and liberal in the middle and centrist. Like I have all different types of people from all over the world following me. So what I don't want to do is actively upset a large part of my audience, my community. Now you could say, well, who cares if they're racist, for example, they can go. And yeah, I absolutely I get that and agree with that. But if I my objective is to talk about ageism, and that affects everybody, no matter what your political beliefs are. So therefore, I don't want to just talk to one group of people. And it's the same for a celebrity. Their films, ultimately, they've got to sell their films or their songs to as many people as possible. So, I bet they've got people behind the scenes going, just be careful. Yeah, talk about stuff, but just you can't talk about everything. Or, it's a tricky one. I've had brands saying to me, do you get political? Because if you do, we might not want to work with you. But then I've also, I might promote a top that came from one shop on the high street, and then people pile on me because apparently we've cancelled them now. And it's like, oh my God, it gets to the point where it's like, I don't know what to do anymore. And then you have to go, actually, I do know what to do. I'm just going to carry on doing what I do. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's as things are, I think we can agree, getting a bit worse. This is my edge language. Okay, everything's awful, but you do. I mean, I know that I have this feeling like in my soul, maybe that's a bit dramatic, but that if you have any platform at all, that you want to use it for good, but also it's just a really difficult thing to know how. I don't necessarily think making a reel where you go, I think you're all awful for thinking this, just to prove that you think that is a useful or productive way. I feel with people like Mark Ruffalo, when they say something like that in a situation where people aren't necessarily expecting it, I think in that sense, it's a really good way of bringing it up and making people aware and making people think, but just like kind of without having to go into things in like massive detail. It was a bit like when guy whose name I always forget from Downton Abbey. He did an interview on the red carpet. Grey hair. Everyone knows who he
Paddington.
is. I'll find out later.
He's in Paddington.
Yeah, is he the Paddington guy as well? Yeah, he's from Downton. Hugh Bonneville.
Yes, it. Bonneville? Bonnie Place.
Ta-da! Oh my God, I am so impressed that was in my brain. But he did it on a red carpet, didn't he? Where the BBC were interviewing him, and he was like, I can't even remember what controversial, hideous topic it was now, probably Gaza. But he was like, and yes, Paddington's an excellent movie. Don't bomb Gaza. And now we're back on talking about Paddington, so that they like couldn't cut it out. And that was just like, it was a really good way for him of just kind of going, you know, things that aren't getting covered, maybe, and to be able to get that out there. So I thought, I feel like if you have a platform and you really think you can do something useful, I think by all means do it, get out there and do it. But if you don't think you can add anything useful to the conversation, I also don't think people should be attacking you about it and trying to force that kind of input.
Agree. And I think ultimately both come from negative places of damning you for doing it and damning you if you don't do it. And neither equals free speech or, you know, being able to say what you want.
Or productivity.
Yeah. So you can't win.
Like, is picking on people who aren't saying things you agree with actually being useful, or would you be better off using your voice to go and speak to somebody else who could actually make a difference?
Exactly. And I just love Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, me too.
I want to talk about my favourite topic, which is reality TV. The Traitors, which is actually my favourite programme and obviously watched by millions, really successful. And one of the things that it's really well known for is Claudia Winkleman's fashion, because she has literally brought back heritage chic and looks amazing in everything she wears. But what's been out there this week is one of the contestants' fashion. So there's this contestant called Jade. She's a PhD student. I don't know her age. She's young compared to me. She's young, beautiful, stylish. You know, she's I feel like she's thought about what she's wearing, because she's really standing out, because she's wearing really interesting, beautiful things. And she wore this cardigan last week. And it's like rainbow coloured, like pastel rainbows, chunky, like amazing, this cardigan. And it's basically went viral, and every magazine and all the press have been discussing it. It's a hand-knitted cardigan by a company called Hope Macaulay, who are based in Northern Ireland, and they use local knitters to knit their products. They're knitted to order. They have in the label the name of the knitter. So really sustainable, slow fashion. However, it costs £430. Which has divided the internet, because obviously the internet has to have an opinion on everything, negative and positive. The division has been, how much? £430 for a cardigan? Even though I love it, how much? And real like outrage, but not, first of all, outrage that a cardigan costs £430, but also outrage that this woman has gone on television wearing this wonderful cardigan we all want, and it's out of reach. So we can talk about that. But then there's the other side, and actually I've seen a lot more positives, like responses, which is actually great, of, well, it's hand knitted. Thank goodness she's promoting slow fashion, sustainable fashion, but also creatives deserve to be paid well for their work. And actually, this is reflective of how much it costs to make things, as well as get a profit, because of course they are a business. So it's sort of divided the internet, and you can't even wash it. People are saying, it's dry clean only. You can't even wash it, because we're so used to buying products that are so cheap you can bang them in the washing machine or just give them away. So I want to talk about this viral cardigan, and really, have you seen it? First of all, obviously, I don't think you watch the Traitors, do you?
Watch the celebrity Traitors. I haven't managed to get into the normal human being Traitors, so but I might give it a go. However, when you mentioned the cardigan to me, I went and looked at the cardigan and I went, "Ooh, cardigan."
And she had
You
her
can see the love. It's pure dopamine dressing, isn't it? Like, it's just gorgeous and chunky and it's amazing. So I did then also go and look them up and I kind of so they sell patterns on their website for like £15. So you can buy a pattern as well for this place. The wool is about £40 for a skein ball, I don't know, thing of it. So I was kind of looking at it and I was thinking, all right, okay, so if we were going to really take that to its extreme, you can get some of that wool cheaper. But I reckon it would probably cost you like 130 quid in wool to make it, plus £15 for the pattern. So if you can knit, fine, you can go and make yourself one for 150 quid, which I think people would still think is expensive for a cardigan.
yes,
But if you then bear in mind that this is being hand knitted by someone, I once knitted a small line of a scarf before realizing I couldn't be bothered. But so I have no idea how many hours it takes to knit a cardigan. I'm going to say 10, right? Because I can do 10 times table.
yes,
So if you were paying someone £20 an hour to knit for 10 hours, that's another 200 quid. And if you then think, so then we're what, on like 350 now? Just for materials,
mm,
human beings' time, and a pattern. So if you then put in postage, I don't bet they charge postage, do you think?
I
But
don't.
anyway, like other bits and bobs that would be involved, heating, lighting for a company, you know, the fact that they are a company and they need to make profit. £430 suddenly starts to look like the price we should actually be paying for these things.
Yeah,
So I quite often think about this is that obviously issue one is that we've all been completely destroyed by fast fashion. That's it. Fast fashion makes us think that cardigans cost £3.50 and they don't cost £3.50. Um, or they think an expensive cardigan is 60 quid and it's not, because the materials cost a lot more. And we all know that the prices of everything are going up and the prices of things for creators are going up as well. So that wool that they use is more expensive, and the people who are knitting it need to pay more for their gas and electricity and the food that they put on their table. We've really lost touch with the idea that if we're paying someone else to make something for us, that person at the other end also needs needs to live, needs money, and this is their job. So I think that that's dangerous because we also need to be clothed, obviously, but fast fashion has given us the idea that we can be. Oh, I've completely lost where I was trying to go, but we can be clothed in a wide range of things rather than picking and choosing those special and expensive pieces. Kind of
absolutely.
makes sense. I knew where I was going, and then I wandered off a side road halfway down, and yeah. So, but you know what I mean. Basically, I probably can't afford to buy a £430 cardigan. But neither can I afford to put all those hours into learning to knit. So if I want that cardigan, I'm willing to accept that that's a reasonable price to pay for the cardigan.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads in this, isn't there? Obviously, there's the debate about fast fashion, which I'm sure we'll chat about a bit more. But I think also we are allowed to have clothing at different price levels, just like there always has been. If I see something, I think, oh, that's nice, and it's priced out of my personal price range, I don't get really, really upset because there will be something I can buy that may not be the same quality, same material, same look, but I could get a chunky cardigan in pink, for example, or dip multiple colors from somewhere else and spend less. Now, will it be as nice? Possibly not. Will it be as individual? Possibly not. Whatever. Park that. The point is back to this internet furore and fury that we have when something isn't right for us. Like, we've all become slightly narcissist in this way that it's like it's all about me. I can't
Mhm.
afford £430, or I don't want to pay £430, so therefore I'm outraged. And it's like, well, somebody is buying it. She is, for example,
Yeah.
and I'm sure
I
she'll get
think
some
it's the
work with them.
acknowledgement of the kind of Sorry, I think it's like the acknowledgement of the fabrics and stuff that go into it as well. I mean, this is like she called it like Collardale wool. I can't remember now, but it's a very fancy wool. But it's a really nice wool. All the people complaining you can't chuck it in the washing machine, you shouldn't really be doing that with wool ever, because it doesn't need it necessarily. It's supposed to have like the natural oils in it and all the stuff that does things. But yeah, so you could get a version in polyester maybe, if polyester's your thing, or you could get a less fancy wool version. There will be a range of versions. You can get someone who knits, like your nan will probably knit it for you if you're asked. I do have to admit, despite my lack of that kind of practical creativity, when I did go to the website, they also sell kits on there. And I was a bit like, I can learn to crochet, right? So steer clear for Jem in her hand crocheted cardigan any year soon.
I think that's a good point. So actually, talking about that designer, she's selling the patterns. So that's the accessible one, if you want that exact pattern. But I'm the kind of person where I see something and I'm like, okay, so that's out of my price range. But what is it about it I liked? So it's chunky, or it could be the colour, or the fact that it was kind of slightly hanging off her shoulder. So then when I go out, I mean, I buy most of my clothes secondhand. I might be looking for something similar. You should go to Vinted and write in, purple and lilac chunky cardigan. And yes, it won't be the same, but you can get a different version. And I think for me, it's the upset of people when you can actually just go, okay, I can't afford it, so what can I do instead? And that seems to have kind of gone. It's back to, we've talked often about like lack of critical thinking. It's a bit like that, well, you don't have to buy it. You're not being forced to buy it. So just calm down, everyone.
So do we think the issue here specifically was, because I bet Claudia Winkleman's items aren't all in like the blooming affordable price bracket either. I wonder if it's because it was a contestant. Like when you hear student, you think, I bet I can afford what they've got. So then when you kind of discover you can't, maybe that's the bit that upset people. Because I mean, I do it all the time. I do Only Murders in the Building. I'm forever like image searching her clothes and going like, oh, that's a shame. No, it's out of stock and it cost £1,000, but it's definitely the out of stock bit that's the problem. And she's supposed to be a not very well off woman living in a borrowed flat in that. So, but again, I do the same thing. I go, what is it that I like about that? And then I'll go and kind of try and put something together similarly. But people have kind of lost that as well. I think they think of everything that they watch now as a shopping experience. So maybe she should be a catalogue, and then her being a normal human being makes them think, oh, well, that should have been more affordable. And that's the disappointment. That's the disconnect.
But then you get that also with influencer marketing. If I share something that's expensive, I get a backlash for it. But I am allowed to wear or share, different things. So I think it's back to this. Feels like a bit of I said about critical thinking, but a little bit of entitlement as well. It's like, she's got it, I want it, why can't I have it? Well, it's like, well, I think there's a bit of that. And then, of course, we are so used to buying things or having the ability to buy things that are so cheap. You can get a jumper for, I know, you can go to Primark, and to be fair, I think I have seen on the interweb that all their prices have gone up, and there's a furore about that as well, because Primark have put their prices up. So Primark jumper used to be, say, like 10 quid. It's now £20, and everyone's like outraged. But of course, everything has cost more. But even so, whatever the price is, we're so used to seeing that the lines are so blurred that we can't cope with seeing something that's not like that. And it's, is fast fashion not helping individual designers? Well, obviously we know the answer to that anyway, but
obviously not. Especially when they start literally thieving off them. I'm like, all these people who want that jumper, just like, give it a week. Temu will have a version. They'll be using the same pictures from this website, and the jumper you get will be completely different. But there we go.
I know, and we've talked about that before, haven't we? About how bad it is and copying. But again, it's slow fashion, and then you also get people complaining about fast fashion and I feel rightfully so, but then getting upset about the price of slow fashion, and it's kind of like, you're gonna have to go pre-love then, because, you know, slow fashion cannot be fast fashion prices. It's impossible.
I think fast fashion's kind of, people have lost that little bit of creativity with what they already have, I think. So I think that's probably part of it as well. When you're saying, she's got this thing and I want it, again, people have started to look at things more as that specific item rather than that kind of vibe that you're thinking about. Whoa, what is it about that really grabs me? And yeah, that's a shame. Along with everything else. I mean, like, this is what there's. Oh God, why do you pick the ones that have got so much we could talk about? We need to talk about people having skills for sewing. We need to talk about people thinking that they can have everything now, right this very second. And we need to we need to talk about, like, a loss of creativity. Should people be paid fairly for their work? Again, that's creatives get that a lot. Nobody goes to an accountant and goes, how much?
I know.
Like, you know. Or even, I mean, I know people talk about lawyers' fees a lot, but they wouldn't go to them and go, you charge how much an hour? Because, and I mean, when you're a lawyer, you're not even using any materials. Like, it's literally your brain. But, you know, if you've made something for someone, like, people somehow think that they're like, did that take you an hour to make? And you go, maybe, but I also had all these things and the 50 years of experience or whatever it is. So, yeah, so people, when it comes to making something, I mean, I've been at craft fairs where people will literally walk around the tables and go, oh, I could make that. And you go,
Go on
well,
then.
why don't you then?
I know. But I think we've also, and this is linked to fast fashion, lost the ability to rewear our wardrobe. So if you buy an expensive item, or if I ever buy an expensive item, I keep it for decades, literally, and I wear it and wear it. And when you start to think of, like, cost per use, but people are so used to wearing things once or twice and then giving it away that, of course, £430 is a lot. But if you wore that a lot, potentially for years and years and years and years and years, then actually the cost per wear is fine. I know I do have some expensive things in my wardrobe, and I have worn them. I've got this purple coat. Actually, I'm going to make a post about it soon, because I found a photograph of me wearing it in 2000. I bought it in 1999, and it was from Whistles. And at the time, it was expensive, and you know, I can't remember. It was a few £100s, and obviously then it would have been worth that couple of £100 is more than it is now. But I'm still wearing it, and it hasn't fallen apart because it was really well made, and it's kind of timeless, even though it's lilac and fluffy, and it still fits because it's baggy, and I love it. Like, I love it, and that's why I continue to wear it. So then, cost per use, it's okay, you know. Whereas I could have just bought a coat from wherever, H&M or whoever, and it could have lasted me a season and only wear it a couple of times or something.
To be fair, I also have an awful lot of cheap clothes that I've been wearing for actual donkey's years. I know I definitely have at least 2 Primark jumpers that are 20 years old, and I've, you know, keeping your own clothes in good condition as possible, whether they're cheap or expensive. But in conclusion, I also want that cardigan now, so thank you very much. And not having £430, I might start learning to crochet.
Well, we could knit an arm each or something. And then share
It's the
it.
Friday I'm in the cardigan.
It is really nice, and I really hope that the designer has. I mean, obviously she's had a lot of publicity from Jade wearing it, and I hope she goes from strength to strength, because actually that's done, you know, it's been great for her. So I think that's great that Jade, a person on a television show, has worn something made in the UK and has promoted it, and, you know, hopefully got lots of sales for her, and hopefully they might work collaboratively. I feel like there needs to be a collaboration between them.
Definitely. Yeah, the Traitors cardigan.
I'm in.
So we're going to talk about Kate Winslet, or more specifically, we're going to talk about Photoshop, because, you know, we never end up talking about the people that we're actually supposed to be talking about. But this week was, the first I saw of this was actually in an Instagram post, but there has been a lot of other kind of chat around it. Kate Winslet was on the cover of Grazia, and Kate Winslet is 50, and she, on the cover of the magazine, I'm just going to say she does not look 50. There's been a lot of photoshopping on the pictures on the front. I imagine there was also excellent lighting by the photographer because we all know that we look different in different lights. But her skin is very smooth. There's some very light lines around her eyes. You know, the way we wish we were all aging, where it was just like, oh, I look experienced. But she looks amazing. Kate Winslet always looks amazing. But it was very obvious that there'd been a lot of Photoshop done on this. I think one of these reasons it's been quite a big thing with it being Kate Winslet is because she has historically been very anti being Photoshopped. She was Photoshopped on the cover of, I think it was FHM, like very early in her career when all of a sudden her legs were like 12 foot long and she was like, I don't know who that is, but it's definitely not me. And so she's actually had clauses written into some of her contracts since saying that she's not allowed to be photoshopped. So seeing her so heavily photoshopped on the cover of the magazine was a bit of a shock to people. The Instagram post that I saw was quite interesting as well, because they contrasted the pictures from the cover of the magazine and from the photo shoot inside with pictures of her at events and stuff, and pictures of her just kind of caught unawares. And we all also know that pictures of us caught unawares are going to look very different to a professionally lit photo shoot. So they'd chosen some photos which, I'm going to use the word unflattering. I hate the word unflattering, but I'm going to use it here because obviously that's what they were going for, where you can literally see every line on her face and probably some that aren't even there because the lights just decided to make them up. So they'd obviously chosen very unflattering photos to contrast with the Photoshop and say like how awful it was that we were photoshopping and that we don't see the real faces of a 50-year-old woman in a magazine, and that gives us all that false image of what women look like as they age, because we all know women aren't allowed to age. The other reason I thought it was interesting is that when we got into the comments, never read the comments, when we got into the comments, there was literally one person in there going, 50? It's more like 100 with loads of sun damage. And people were like, if you think that's what 100 looks like, then, you know, you are definitely part of the problem here. You've been very much brainwashed by Photoshop. And also, it was something that I recently had on, I think I might have spoken about this before, on a completely innocent post of mine that then got hundreds of thousands of views, where I'd put a picture up saying, like, I'm 46, and then talked about all the stupid stuff I do as a 46-year-old that probably I should have grown out of at, like, 20. But people in the comments decided I needed to be told how old I looked and that I didn't even look 46. I looked 65. It got older. It started off at like 50 and then it got older and older and older and older. And it was 65 by the time we got to the end of it. And yeah, that made me start thinking about it as well, because I'd honestly not given how old I looked a lot of thought. I have noticed more lines popping up maybe, but normally people tell me I look younger than I am. Not that I care, but you do a little bit, right? So I was intrigued to then see people talking about Kate Winslet that way as well, because once again, you're damned if you do and you are damned if you don't. So I think we'll stick with Photoshop to start with, rather than moving on to immediately how women are allowed to age or how old I look.
So as somebody that has been Photoshopped before, it must be like infuriating for her if she has said no photoshopping and then she has been photoshopped. Like, so I had some photos taken of me when I just had my son. So he was literally a day old. And I had really bad spots all over my face. And a friend of my husband's came around to take photos of us. Well, we didn't ask him to. He just turned up with a camera. Literally, just given birth. I mean, like, honestly, and I'm in the worst dressing gown, looking absolutely horrific. And he took pictures of us. And then he photoshopped my face and took all my spots out and blurred my entire face on my photos of me and my baby, and then presented them back in a frame. And I remember, like, am I supposed to be flattered with this? You know, obviously I'm not a celebrity, but it was like somebody has made the decision that I look shit. I mean, I did. I looked awful. I had just given birth and I was in pain and I had really bad skin and no makeup and my hair, like, it was just a really bad picture. Didn't want to be photographed at all. But I remember feeling like, oh, right. So I was paranoid about my skin before. now I'm really paranoid about my skin. So now imagine being like a celebrity and having your photo taken, and literally somebody has decided that you don't look good enough.
Mm.
You know,
See, that's like
you're mm,
that's the immediate, like, personal impact of it, isn't it? So I get that. So yeah, like on you, where you're going, right, well, someone feels like I need to be photoshopped because I don't match the ideal. But then we are every time they Photoshop, they are then like recreating that ideal. So the
mm.
reason that the guy that came around your house with the camera Photoshopped you is because that's not what women who've just had babies look like. I've seen photo shoots of women who've just had babies, right? They're glowing.
And she'll really
Full
be
face of
happy. She'll be really pleased that I've taken every single spot off her face.
yeah,
Mm.
full face of makeup. And we're not seeing the kind of reality of that moment. And I quite often think of that when people like the technology at the moment where people can take people out of pictures, put people back into pictures. Sometimes it really bothers me because I'm like, well, we're misremembering it. It feels a bit 1984, like we're misremembering this moment. This isn't what this moment looked like. This isn't what these people look like. So it's not a true representation. It's almost like, again, when people kind of AI edit these like pictures from the 1940s and 50s of celebrities and like photoshops them, that it's not an accurate remembering of things, and we're creating a world that doesn't exist.
Mm.
So yeah, the 50-year-old women see Kate Winslet in that and go, well, that's what Kate Winslet looks like. And it absolutely is not. That is
Yeah.
not what Kate Winslet, and it's not what 50-year-old women look like. Have you ever photoshopped yourself?
Well, before I talk about myself, my job used to be to Photoshop images of women. So, um, I know. So in the noughties, I was head of visual merchandising and signage for Tesco's clothing. And, you know, I was responsible for the signage. I didn't do the shoot. I didn't select the models. That all then came to me, and I had to choose the images and, you know, decide which ones we were using in the press and all things like that. And I was trained that I had to analyze these images and make them look perfect. And I remember taking everything out. And I was more critical, I think, of the women, although to be fair, there was most of the images were women. And like literally I was told that's what I had to do. And I remember once there was a model that was chosen, not by me, and she had a gap in her tooth. And we were so used to seeing perfection, if you think about magazines and what was happening there. And I instructed the art team, the art working team, to fill in the gap in her teeth. And the woman that chose the model had a fit and was like, that's her thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, is it? Like, I don't know who she is. And she was, I remember her saying, but it's like you wouldn't take out Cindy Crawford's mole, would you? And I was like, well, no. um, and now, fast forward, I'm like, oh my God, that was my job. But that's because in the noughties, that was absolutely the thing. Every single person in a magazine, on an advert, like a print advert, on signage, had to be flawless. So one would like to think that we aren't like that anymore, but it feels like we are. But then, as you just said, Kate, have you ever airbrushed yourself? We all have apps where we can do that. So I used to, yes.
Yeah.
I did a post actually this week around what I looked like in 2016. It's a bit of a trend going around sharing
There's
your
so
look
many of
under.
these going around. I've got one coming out in the next couple of days. Don't worry. That's one of the things that made me think of this question.
Yeah, and I've written in the captions that I was editing my face then partly because I felt like shit. I was perimenopausal, and actually I include one picture where I think is edited, but you can't even edit the black circles under my eyes out because like it's impossible. You'd have to like remove half my face. So I kept that in. But the point was I definitely was then, and but I don't now. And I purposely don't now because I understand good lighting, as you said at the beginning. You know, if you actually photograph yourself in front of a lit window, you're going to look better. A lit window.
Like, keep it that side, right? Like, yeah.
And To be fair, if I take a picture of myself now and I look shocking, I don't post it. But what I don't do is airbrush my face in any way. But it's taken time to get to that because we are so used to historically seeing flawless women in particular. And then we've been given the tools to be able to do it ourselves. And we did. And obviously, 10 years ago, I saw when I was going through my camera roll, Snapchat filters were all the thing. It was really the start of filtering our faces. It became
Facetune was the big one I remember back then. Do you ever use
I
Facetune?
still use Facetune. So, but I don't
Do
use
you?
it. Yes, I do
On your
occasionally.
face.
So, for example, if there's to edit, like basically to be a Photoshop, not to take out my wrinkles, but if there's a stain on my top or something, you can just like take out. Like you can kind of, I can't use Photoshop, but so I've still got it on my phone. I'll use it to kind of correct an image so that it looks like there isn't a big stain on my top. That's just last time I used it, but not to edit my face. No, but I did 10 years ago, without a doubt.
See, I did too. That's when I was looking through some pictures because that was the blogging era as well. So when I was looking through pictures from then, I used Facetune on my face a lot. Like I would smooth, brighten up and that kind of thing, just because I wanted the pictures to look editorial. And that's kind of what we think of editorial. This was the time when we were like, the bloggers were doing like full-on photo shoots. I mean, I had my fancy camera, I did the full-on photo shoots, and then I would use Photoshop, and I would even I would take out background stuff as well. Like there was a bin that didn't look editorial and stuff like that. So I did do a lot of that because I thought that was what I should be doing as a professional. And it's since then I use Lightroom. I have a Lightroom filter that I put on things to give things a consistent visual look. So maybe the colors are sometimes not exactly the same as they came out of camera. But I think sometimes you're going with a mood with a picture rather than an accurate representation of exactly what your camera picked up at that time. The idea of it on faces makes me immensely uncomfortable now. And very specifically, when you start talking about using it on bodies and actually like changing people's physical proportions, legs longer, bums smaller, all that kind of stuff. I find it really disturbing now. And I find it disturbing to look back at the way that we used to do that like 10 years ago as well, because it is that thing where you're literally not seeing what other human beings look like. And we all spend a lot of time behind a screen now. And we're getting to there is no comparison about what does a normal person of my age look like. Because you see yourself in the mirror, but the faces you see online, none of them are real. They're all filtered through something. I mean, it wasn't anything about the iPhone camera actually having like a built-in filter. Like you would take the picture and it would smooth your skin without you even asking it to.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know on stories, if you take your photograph on Instagram stories directly and you don't upload it, your skin does look better. I mean, we've talked about body dysmorphia before, haven't we? When we were, I can't remember what topic we were talking about, but we have talked about, I think AI or I can't even, social media, should it be banned for under 16?
Oh, yeah.
So we have touched on this, but I think, we are many people, women in particular, are so used to seeing their face filtered. I know a makeup artist, for example, who like a bride went for a makeup trial and looked in the mirror and was like, oh, I don't like it, and opened her phone and said, well, I like how I looked here. And the makeup artist had to say, but that's been edited. And she was like, no, it hasn't. And she was like, you're in front of me, like that's been edited. I might not know exactly how you've edited, but I am looking at your face like it is different. So it's a tricky place. But then I think there's also, I feel like there is a move away from it. I think a little bit. I feel like looking back at the 2016 pictures, I feel like there is a move away from it. But I still see people like Facebook people, like my Facebook friends, not my app, you know what I mean? You know, the people that you're friends with on Facebook that you're not, you just don't even know how you're friends with.
Yeah.
And they'll post a picture which has been edited to the point where they don't have, forget a wrinkle, they don't have anything on their face. It's just like a white circle or a pink circle or whatever with eyes, and everyone's like, oh, you look beautiful, hun. And you're like, is it just me? It's like, am I the only one that can see that you've edited to this to the point where your face looks like a cartoon?
I think maybe this is one of the things about the Grazia cover, though, as well, is that there has been a bit of a move away from that kind of extreme perfection in previous years. And like showing that we actually have a skin texture, and that like, sometimes when you do makeup, you can see it's makeup, like that kind of thing. But then recently, obviously, we've talked about Manjaro and stuff, and like GLP-1s and return of skinny, and like we're seeing a lot of this stuff come back. So I think maybe seeing this kind of cover image that's been so edited, especially on someone who's been so vocal about being anti-Photoshop, is maybe a bit of a sign of a move back towards that kind of thing, which is sad. As someone who'd lived through it at least once, it's very sad. I like seeing what people actually look like. I love seeing that authenticity. But there's also a bit of a move on social media specifically towards that kind of level of authenticity, and pictures that look like they've just been edited in an app, and actually flash photography, which we didn't want to look like we'd used the flash for years, did we? And I'm seeing a lot of that come back, and I'm wondering if we're going to see that little bit of a return to social media being where you get your reality.
I think that's definitely happening. I think it's disappointing though that it's a fashion magazine, because we'd like to think we were moving forward, and if it's a fashion magazine doing it, it is basically reinforcing. What I mean is, if it was a tabloid press or a lads mag, I don't think they exist anymore, but maybe, but
Yeah.
I can expect it. But it's just, I think it's just really disappointing. And then, because if she has a clause in her contract that she can't be photoshopped, and we know, whether it's still in there as a clause, everybody knows that she's very vocal about this. Somebody has decided to do it, and that person is likely to be the editor, or the editor of that piece, or somebody within that, that said, actually, we need to make it look different. And those people are creating a magazine for women, and it's so disappointing if we are going back there.
Yeah, I again, maybe we will see that kind of, because there was a long drive, that 2016, when social media and blogs and stuff wanted to look like they were fashion magazines. So will we see that again, or will we get a split where actually people want their social media to look real, and that's where we will see the reality, even as fashion tries to push us back towards airbrushed twigs? Or do I need to download Facetune again? No, not happening.
Good for stains.
I would hope that maybe we do want to hang on to that little bit of reality. It does make me sad to think that another generation are going to be growing up in a world where the editors of fashion magazines are telling them that they need to be smooth and poreless.
Hope that if this is actually a thing, that we are moving towards this, that people do start talking about it, because people are talking about the effects of filters and social media, particularly Instagram, on young girls in particular. But I hope that if that does start to happen in the media, so print magazines, for example, that other people do start shouting about it, because otherwise they'll be let off the hook, and all the blame we put on social media.
And it will just be us here with our wrinkles and our ring lights.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for another roundup of midlife chat, hot takes, and occasional moaning. Well, quite a bit of moaning.
Make sure you hit subscribe so your podcast app gently nudges you every Friday, because honestly, who remembers anything without a reminder this day? And also, we like people liking us because we're very needy.
And if you fancy being extra lovely, leave us a rating or a review. It helps more brilliant women like you find us. Have a great weekend, everyone, and make sure you find time for yourself. You deserve it.